This is the Rare Breed Syndicate. It is a group of high-performing men who are honestly trying to get better in every pocket of life. Family, fitness, business, their relationship, and honestly their personal faith or their belief system. My name is John Pruna, and I'm an executive coach who specializes in leadership, high performance, and mindset.
Today I have a special guest, and I'm extremely blessed to call this man a dear friend. This person has actually built a 9-figure company, and his story is all about resilience, relationships, and reinvention. And you'll see why shortly. Just a little bit about the man that we're going to talk about and get to know today. He actually started with nutrition shops, built that company, and ended up connecting with a huge distribution company that he helped build from 13 million to 125 million. During that time, he experienced a lot in the world of entrepreneurship and found his way to being part of a team that actually won the Indy 500. So he's touched a lot of different spaces of entrepreneurship, but the climb is what's most important. Now, after reaching a lot of financial goals before the age of 50 years old, he is back and he's introducing a new product that is actually the first sugar-free canned coffee that also acts as a nootropic. He is part of the Rare Breed Syndicate, and he lives exactly what he says. Today, I have my brother, Chuck Lechtman.
Thank you so much.
Glad you're here, man. Glad you're here.
So glad to be part of the team, man. I love what you're doing, your mission, what Rare Breed stands for. You know, our wives have been friends for years.
Yes.
And you and I hooked up about 2 months ago in Florida and had a dinner. And I just walked away shaking my head. So I love that guy. I love what he stands for. You know, this is, you're just, you know, when you meet somebody, it's kind of like, that guy thinks like I do. And not a lot of people do, you know, not that we're special, but it's nice when you find somebody who has same character traits and same goals in life as you do. And mainly, you know, your goal is helping others. And that's what I've been preaching for, you know, several years of my life. So,
well, it's crazy because we've been so close to each other through your family as well as mine, but we never actually had a sit-down conversation.
Right.
Because I got a chance to train now 2 of your daughters, right? And of course, I knew your wife. And God, for years, you went to my clinic, you got treatment, and I just would hear all about you. And one of the things that I heard is you're extremely humble. You've done exceptional things in business, and you've stayed grounded the entire time. Like, y'all need to sit down. And it took me going to your beach house for us to actually like sit down and talk. And now you've been part of the Rare Breed Syndicate, and you've made your impact being felt throughout the entire time. So,
well, I've been welcomed so much, John. When I went to the first presentation we had, was it last month, early last month?
yeah.
Man, I shook so many hands. Everybody was so nice to me and felt like I was part of the team just right off the bat. And I love hearing those individual stories of what each person's going through, because you kind of think back. Of course, I was the oldest guy in the room, you know, which kind of felt good at this time. I'm thinking, this is a room where I want to be the oldest guy, because I feel like that some of my experience can hopefully guide some of these guys, and I can get some excitement, enthusiasm from what they're doing. I'm learning the whole time. I'm paying to be part of Rare Breed. I'm not getting paid anything.
Yeah.
I'm sending you money because I believe in what you're doing, and I want to participate and help as much as I can.
Well, dude, your story needs to be documented. It is a Netflix movie from top to bottom. And when we went to lunch and I got a chance to just feel your genuine spirit on how everything came full circle to where you're at today, I can't wait for you to share it. So, man, I really want us to talk about really the crucial lessons that you've learned from building a huge company, probably enduring a lot of things in your own marriage, learning new things about yourself, like through self-discovery.
Absolutely.
So the world needs to just know, like, how did it all start? You know, like, is this when you reached a pinnacle, like 9 figures, and to be able to actually, did you ever think that it was going to get there?
No, I never thought it would be that big. You know, when I was in a store business, the first time we hit $100,000 in sales in a month, it was a it was a real milestone for a small sports nutrition store. There was very few stores in the state of Texas doing that kind of business, and so I'd had some success. But man, it's once you reach a goal you think is really far out, your mind starts expanding. You're thinking, wait a minute, if I can do 100, why couldn't I duplicate this? Why can't I have 5 stores doing 100? Why can't I do 150? It's crazy when you reach a milestone. You know, I always tell everybody, mine's like a parachute, works a lot better when it's open.
Yes.
If you're open-minded about what you can possibly achieve, you know, you don't close anything out or box it out as not possible. So I think that's one of the important, you know, factors. We talked about this when we met. You know, you got to dream big and think big. I think that's so important. Sounds like one thing, but dreaming big is actually visualizing you making these achievements. Thinking big is plotting out the course to get there. What's it technically going to take for me to do this,
Right,
to get to here? So this, even though it's kind of under one big umbrella, but I think that's probably the one of the biggest things of my success throughout the years is I was always a big thinker, big dreamer. You know, when I was a kid.
Ever since.
I told you when we met, I said, man, when I was probably 10 years old, I said, I'm going to be rich one day and I'm going to be famous, you know, because I was watching all these athletes, but man, I wasn't very good at sports.
Gotcha.
So I could tell right off the bat, well, I wasn't going to be playing in the NBA as much as I like basketball. And I thought to myself, there's something I'm going to do. I always felt like I was going to be successful. And thankfully, I had people in my life that would encourage me. You know, but and, you know, I got knocked off my ladder a couple of times. So it doesn't like you're just born into a great family and you're going to be successful. I mean, you go through some really high times and low times, which creates the character and the person you are today, which makes you really appreciate where you are, but also you want to reach out and give a hand to people that are trying to get to whatever their level is. You know, everybody has their own goals and dreams, and it is so exciting and fun to help other people succeed. As you know,
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir, this is what you do for a living. But I've experienced a lot of that in my career, helping others, and it's come back to me tenfold.
Well, man, let's circle back.
Yes, sir.
I really want to hear how you got into entrepreneurship from the beginning. I know for a fact that it was a very rocky road.
Yes.
From the beginning, you did not just walk into success right off the bat. So let's start there. Tell me when you started.
So as a child and as a teenager, my parents would always ask me, you know, what do you want to do for a living? My mother was an anesthesiologist, was real successful. My dad was an engineer. So they were thinking that's probably the 2 choices I'm going to do. So I told them for a while, I guess I'll be an engineer because I'm pretty good at math, even though I'm not great at the other subjects, you know, you need to be good at. And I started seeing my uncle succeed. He owned his own business in Florida, and I saw his lifestyle and saw how much fun he was having. And it wasn't just the material things he was gaining. He had the freedom and flexibility to do as he wanted. My parents were tied to these jobs for 30 years. You know, we had a few weeks every year for vacation. They would cram in a summer vacation. So I started talking about, I'd like to be an entrepreneur. I want to do what my uncle does. And my parents discouraged it. That sounds terrible. My parents says, oh, no. Why would you ever want to work every week and not know what you're going to get paid?
Yes.
And that was exciting to me. I said, Mom, I want to get paid exactly what I'm worth. And I'm willing to take that gamble. If I do that and I'm not worth anything, then I'm going to learn my lesson. But if I
When did you have that conversation?
when I was going into college.
Wow.
Because I was even questioning, do I need a college degree? And boy, education was everything to my mom. It would have broke her heart if I thought I didn't need a college degree. And turns out I did, you know, so I got a good degree, which has helped me. But graduating from college, my mom thought, okay, you can go apply for jobs at all these Fortune 500 companies, you know, and she could imagine me doing that successfully. And I opened a business right out of college with my fiance. And right after college, and I was so excited about it, told all my friends how successful I was going to be. We borrowed money from the SBA. My wife's father co-signed an SBA loan. You're talking about putting pressure on a young marriage. And
Dude.
18 months later, we're out of business.
Well, wait, there's so much to unpack there
Sure.
because I think anybody who's hearing this, especially these young entrepreneurs, being able to block out the noise.
Sure.
So I want you to lean into how did it feel, the fact that people that you love and respected, such as your parents, were telling you to just stay status quo
Exactly.
and follow society because, you know, my mom's a nurse and my dad is a mailman and they're immigrants. So the idea of just making it to America was already success.
Right.
So just staying in line and having a corporate job that's all I was taught to do. So it was the same thing. When I was trying to jump into being my own man and running my own business, my parents were just vigilantly against it. So tell me that process.
That's great. When I was in college, when you're choosing your major, of course, you're thinking of career choices. College, I say last year, you hear this. If you get an engineering degree, you're going to make 50,000. If you get a pre-med degree, you can make this. They slot you into these financial categories based on, what exactly that, your degree's in. But to me, I said, and you've always heard this thing, retirement age is 65 years old. If you save 3% of your income for 40 years to your 65, you can have $1 million and retire. If I'm going to have $1 million, I'd rather have it at 25 instead of 65. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So retirement simply means you got enough money where you don't have to work anymore. It has nothing to do with age.
Yeah.
But that's so backwards of what you're taught from a young child until you're a college age kid, work, and retire. And I said, look, if I'm going to go out there, I'd rather work real quick and get the money early, do good with the money, and spend more time with my family. So I decided to open that business right out of college. I just wasn't a smart business person. I was undercapitalized. I didn't understand the value of marketing. So we didn't spend much on marketing. We thought word of mouth was going to make our business grow. And not only did my parents didn't think it was a good idea, believe it or not, my 3 or 4 best friends weren't actually cheering me on. I was kind of surprised.
Wow.
They were telling me, why don't you just get a real job like everybody else? They were afraid I was going to succeed and they were going to get that real job. So it was kind of a shock to me that, wait a minute, where's all these people that should be supporting me?
Absolutely.
There was a little bit of jealousy. And when I failed in 18 months, I'm sure there were some snickers.
Yeah.
And it was me crying and them snickering. But
are they still in your life?
They are in a very, very minute capacity.
Got you.
Yeah. And listen, and we talked about this before, 98 percenters are 98 percenters for a reason. If you want to get legal advice, you please talk to an attorney. If you want to get medical advice, please talk to a doctor. If you want to get financial advice, find someone financially that is very successful and ask them. Don't ask your next door neighbor.
Right.
Last time I looked, my next door neighbor's house was exactly the same as my house.
Yes.
If he had some great financial advice, he would have already used it and not lived in this neighborhood anymore.
Right.
That's the hardest thing to do, but 98 percenters follow 98 percenters, and I was part of the crowd. I just wanted to be accepted like everybody else. So I started studying what 2 percenters do to be 2 percenters. And the reason why those ratios are so important, in 1995, when I was getting out of college, 2% of the population in the US made 6 figures. 98% of people in America made less than 100,000. It's the richest country in the history of the world. Why is only 2% of people enjoying wealth in America? I thought that was so unfair.
Wow.
Till I studied, because only 2% of the people are willing to put in the effort it takes to get that. So I told myself, well, I'm willing to do that. I'm going to try that. It's not just the effort. I didn't have the knowledge on how to run a business. My business failed for other reasons. I was there every day. The customers weren't there every day. So there was a reason why I failed. And even when we closed, we still owed the SBA a lot of money. And my father-in-law had signed for it. So you're talking about some pressure on a new marriage. Your father-in-law's looking at you every month saying you're a failure and you still owe this bank a lot of money. It's in my name. How are you going to pay for it? So
how did you process that? I mean, your pride, you're only in your 20s.
I was 25 years old. And again, the fact that I had told everybody for years I was going to be an entrepreneur, it really hurt, so don't go and brag about your success until you actually have some.
Yeah.
But I was just excited about being an entrepreneur. So I didn't mind talking about it. I was expressing my dreams and my visions, and I wrote them down. I had a plan about where I was going.
So you were mapping it even
absolutely.
when you were young.
No question. I had written goals, and you've heard this expression, people that aim at nothing usually hit with remarkable accuracy. If you don't know where you're going in life, or you don't think I'm going to do this, you're probably not going anywhere.
Right.
So I knew I was focused. I was driven. I read the right books. I listened to the right people. I just didn't have 100% of what I needed to be successful. I didn't have the basic knowledge of business, undercapitalization, marketing, some of the key things that can make you, have an unsuccessful start to your career. So I had to go live with my parents at 25 years old with my brand new wife, living in the bedroom I grew up in with a new wife, and I was out looking for a job in Birmingham, Alabama. And you're talking about a low point in my life, We both had degrees. She had a degree in entrepreneurship. I had one in quantitative finance. So if we got jobs right away, but I knew after 3 months of working at that bank, this is just not for me. You know, and I wasn't being cocky, but I felt like I was smarter than half the people I was working with. And I don't want that to come across
Right.
as bad, but I'm thinking I'm getting paid $23,000 a year. And they said, if you do a great job every year, you get a 3% raise. I'm pretty good at math. I was thinking, so you're 7, I'm going to get 30,000. I want to be a 2%er. So I think in 7 years, I'm going to make 30,000. And so every day at that job, I was thinking of my way out. So I'd go home and talk to my wife and I'd say, look, we've got to open our own business. You know, she says, are you kidding me? We've done that and we failed. She goes, why don't you just stay in a real job like everybody else and we'll save money and work like everybody else. And it drove a big wedge between us and ultimately cost us our marriage. Sounds selfish now, but I was so driven at the time and I thought she was wrong and I was right. And maybe they were somewhere in the middle was the right thing, but we actually couldn't even stay together, you know, for reasons, money reasons, which is a lot of reasons why people get divorced. But mainly, I wasn't going to give up on my dream. I didn't care even for my wife, and that sounds incredibly shallow. I just knew there was something out there for me, and it wasn't working at South Trust Bank for the next 40 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you knew the life that you wanted to create for yourself. So let's move forward. Now you get back in entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So what happens there?
Well, and I started studying people like you, John, people that were influencing others, giving them hope and showing them how to open their own business and be successful. And I really studied what I did wrong. That's so important to reflect. You don't want to reflect on bad times in your life, but you can learn so much, you know.
Yeah.
Why did I not succeed? I've got, you know, people say, all you got to do is work hard and you'll be successful. And I would say, well, if that's the case, ditch diggers would be millionaires. It's not just working hard.
That's a bar.
Working hard and working smart.
Yes.
So learned what made me unsuccessful the first time and said, I'm going to overcome those things. So I moved to Texas in 1998 with Christian Harrison, one of my good buddies, CJ. And we opened a store in Plano, a nutrition store, something we were both passionate about. And I called it Fitness Essentials, which is ironically the same name of the business that failed in Tuscaloosa, you know, 5 years earlier. I was not going to let that name fail. And no matter what it took, you know, I just said, you know what, just to spite, I want to make sure that thing's not hexed or there's some kind of
I love it.
voodoo on the name.
You weren't going to be denied.
Oh, it wasn't. And we learned our lesson and by the grace of God, we hit a home run. I mean, right off the bat, that business took off and experienced success that I hadn't really felt a lot in my life. And it was fantastic. But then that's when I told you, when my mind started expanding to other things, if I can have this much experience in this retail store, why can't I buy part of my distributor, go up the food chain a little bit? So,
Well, tell me that. What was the X factor that made this go round so successful?
number one, it was well thought out. We had a good location. We knew how to market. We had plenty of money in the bank. You know, we started not on a shoestring budget. We started with money in the bank. And then we started offering services that people in North Texas didn't have. We had the first bod pod. I don't even know if you know what that is in the state of Texas. Bod pod's this big, looks like an egg. You sit in it. It's a way to test your body fat.
Yeah.
Typically, hydrostatic weighing is the gold standard on body fat, but this used air displacement instead of water. We had the very first one in the state of Texas. There were only about 180 of them made in 1998. University of Texas got one shortly after we did, but this was all research facilities and universities all over the country and us. We were on their website.
So just since I'm catching everything, because I think your story is just remarkable, when you went back into Fitness Essentials the second go route, did you bootstrap it or did you get a loan? Like, how did you said you started capitalized. So,
But after I quit working at that bank, before I moved to Texas for 2 years, I got involved in a network marketing company from here called Family of Eagles. They sold American Eagle gold coins that the U.S. Mint makes, and I made $122,000 in the first 12 months of that.
wow.
I was a national public speaker. I did, spoke 4 nights a week, for 2 solid years all over the country. They videotaped every one of them. Had a lot of legal ramifications. We had to make sure that we weren't saying the wrong thing, but I was on their company video. I was their 12th largest money earner in the company that year. It was only a 2-year-old company, and I saved every penny of that.
So you grinded to put
yeah.
yourself in a position
Yeah,
to make sure you were capital. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's important.
Yeah, and that's also, John, where I learned a lot about the things you teach today. That's where I was exposed for the first time to people telling me, what a 2%er is versus a 98%er. While retirement age has nothing to do with actual age, it has everything to do with just you've got enough money, you don't have to work anymore. So, and then I had to kind of get a whole new class of friends. I had to get friends that thought like 2%ers. And it was a cleansing for me. It kind of hurt my feelings. Some of my childhood friends weren't as close to me anymore, but I found a bunch of new people that thought the way I did, and we helped each other.
Man.
And it's really nice. Instead of someone pulling me off that ladder, there was someone helping me come up the ladder. It was totally different than what I was used to. So it was really, it was evolving in my mind about that's the kind of person I want to be. When I reach the success, I want to be the guy pulling the guy up, not stepping on the guy trying to, reach the top. And that's I've learned a lot of the things that I talk about today during that 2-year period.
That's brilliant. So you start having a lot of success with fitness essentials, and then mentally you start breaking barriers. And I always talk about how, and I'm going to use weight loss as the simple example, you have all these invisible walls that every time you achieve one thing, you're able to leap over that particular wall. So I want you to lean into this, because when I talk about weight loss, when I'm trying to help somebody get in the best shape of their life, right? When they first lose the 10 to 15 pounds, right, they leap over a wall. Now, some of these people that I've worked with are obese. So just by a little bit of effort, they do that. So they kind of dismiss the fact that they did that. They're just, man, I didn't really do much. I just walked and, just changed my diet a little bit. I still ate a lot of fried foods and did this, but man, I lost 10 to 15 pounds. But they start to build a little bit of self-belief. Then they end up losing 30 pounds.
Yes.
And now suddenly, like, I might be onto something. Now they jumped over a bigger wall. And people are starting to give them more compliments. They're starting to see it. They see their strength grow, etc. Then they end up losing over 50 pounds. And to me, once you break that third wall, that invisible wall, now suddenly, when it comes to health and wellness, there's nothing that I can't do. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. When you, in essence, broke that 100,000 in a month revenue mark, that broke a wall. And now suddenly you were like, you know what? I can jump a bigger wall.
Absolutely.
Then for whatever reason, it just boom. And the next thing you know, you built a company that's 9 figures. So speak on that grind and that growth that kind of like unlocked everything.
Sure. Once we reached that $100,000 mark, it was a benchmark, and we quickly became Lone Star Distribution's biggest customer. Lone Star Distribution was a company here, started by a person from Alabama that I didn't even know, actually. He was from Alabama. So as we grew, I said, you know what, I could do this again. So we opened a store in Arlington, and we opened one in downtown in Oaklawn. I opened one in Jackson, Mississippi. So I thought I was going to be the next GNC. I could see me having 100 stores. But after having 4 stores and losing control of the day-to-day activity at every store, even though we had great company culture, I had theft issues. I had customers that weren't getting the service they were expecting at my stores. And I was like, I can't control this. And what I thought I was doing was unfortunately not replicatable across a bunch of locations. Even though, I had great people working for me, they just didn't own the company. They're never going to treat it like an owner unless you incentivize them like an owner. So John Hoffman, the guy that was the founder of Lone Star, he would come ask me financial questions. He knew my background was, my degree is in quantitative finance, and he didn't have a CFO. He would routinely ask me from time to time some financial questions, and I'd help him a little bit. And one day, after about four years of me knowing him, and I loved him, he's the nicest man I've ever met, he says, hey, how would you like to become the CFO of Lone Star Distribution? So I've got this store, doing $1 million a year thinking it's good, and he's doing $1 million a month.
Right.
So for me, I was like, this is me climbing the food chain a little bit, because the distributor, he can actually sell stuff all over the country. Being at my retail store, I've got about a 10-mile radius of customers. I didn't understand the internet then. I didn't know how to sell stuff online, but the distributor, he had customers not only in Texas, but he had them in the surrounding states. So I thought, man, that would be neat. So I said, John, I'll be your CFO if you let me buy part of the company. And that changed my life that day, because he froze the value of the company. And I didn't have a lot of liquid cash. He says, Chuck, I'll let you buy in at this valuation. And he kept that valuation for 4 years.
Wow.
So I was able to buy every year a little bit more as we were growing.
Wow.
So he did me a favor. That's how bad he wanted me, I guess. But he also, John, more than anything, he taught me really how to respect and treat other people. And if you'd have asked me in 2003, I said, I'm a nice guy. I got a lot of friends. I'm a nice guy. And I really felt I was. I had no idea what a real nice guy, so to speak, is until I met this guy. And I watched him for years, and I tried to emulate him because everybody loved him. Employees, the vendors, the customers. He was the nicest guy, would go out of his way. You hear the customer first. He was employee first, and make sure everybody ate before he did. No matter if it cost him a lot of money, it wasn't even good mathematically for the company. He'd make decisions with the long view. Knowing we're going to win this customer over. This cost us $10,000 today, and it's not even our fault. But wait and see what happens, Chuck. And I'd be going, man, I'm the CFO. Wait a minute. We're trying to keep from losing 10 grand. Yeah. He said, no, it's a principle thing. And he goes, the customer, it's not really their fault either, but we're going to take the blame and just trust me on this. And we had opportunity after opportunity to make those decisions in the marketplace, which garnered us a tremendous reputation. He was pretty conservative. I was wanting to grow. TJ Humphreys was part of the company at this time, and I think TJ. TJ and I wanted to expand, so I wrote the business plan for us to go expand all over the country. And over the next 9 years, we opened these huge 80,000 square foot warehouses all over the U.S. and became the second largest distributor in the United States for sports nutrition.
Unbelievable.
Europa was the number one. They were 3 times our size, but they had a 15-year head start on us.
Wow.
So it was like Coke and Pepsi for years. It was, Europa, Lone Star. So almost every store in America bought a lot of their stuff from us or them. We likened ourselves to the Southwest Airlines. We weren't the biggest, but we certainly had the best customer service. And we had technology. We had a lot of things going for us, even though we were small. But without John Hoffman giving me the opportunity from a financial standpoint to own part of that business, but more importantly, just teaching me how to be a man and how to treat my wife, how to treat customers and stuff, it has really, really, really changed my life. And I've tried to emulate him for years. I'll probably never be that guy.
Is he still around?
Oh, yeah, he lives in South Florida. Yeah, he retired in 2015 when we sold that company for a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah, he moved to South Florida. We're still good friends. We're still business partners in a few other ventures. But I tell him all the time how much he means to me. And of course, he sends an email back. He says, what are you talking about, Chuck? He says, Chuck, I hired you to be the CFO because I had just had a heart attack. And I was afraid if something happened to that business and I died, I'm not sure what would happen to my family. He said, I trusted that if you were there, my family would be taken care of. So it was nice that he saw me as not just a CFO, but someone to overlook his family.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So we still have a great relationship today. But he taught me everything I know, and as far as treating people and a lot in business stuff. So and I try to carry that forward with every other business I've had since then. We had some luck, and I told you this story too. The day we sold Lone Star was May 31st, 2015. The month leading up to that, Frank Jr., a partner we had up in New York, we would talk every day. This is the sales price, this is the legal fees, all this stuff. What's the net we get? Like when you pay off the bank, how much money do you get? And you dream about that as an owner of a business. One day I'm going to sell. And so I couldn't wait to log in my bank account that day and have that wire show up and look at all the commas and zeros. And it was like, and it was deflating. The money was there. I was totally shocked that there was no enthusiasm in my heart whatsoever. It was guilt. It was the weirdest sensation. I called Frankie. I said, Frankie, this is weird. This is absolutely not what I expect about when I sell a business. I almost feel guilty. And he said, Chuck, this is a little bit weird. And I'm trying to explain to myself, why am I feeling guilty? And there was 165 employees that had a lot to do with that business at that time that made that business valuable. Of course, we tried to help out who we could and stuff, but I thought of all the people that were making $8 an hour that had just started, and I wasn't sure of their future. The new owners may have some different ideas of what we did, and I didn't have any control anymore. I didn't have any control of decisions they would make. So it was kind of a scary time, but I told myself that day, or within a couple of days, I said, my mission going forward is to help everybody else I can be successful, just to get this guilt out of my system. Mm-hmm. And so I've really made it a mission since that day, and hope I was doing some of that before that day. But since that day, it was a real changing point in my life where I try to help other people, and also let them know that, you can chase that money for years, but when you get that money in your account one day, it's not what you're expecting. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you. I want you to do that, but man, there's so much more to life than commas and zeros in your checking account. And I didn't know it up until that one day. I had to go ahead.
No, talk about that, because one of the things that you always talk to me about, knowing that you've reached that level of success, is work-life balance. And on your road to scaling a company of that magnitude and all of the behind the scenes stuff that you're doing, in addition to, you have beautiful children. At that point, I don't even know if you were married to Sissy then, Talk about the importance of work-life balance, because this is one of the reasons why I want to say it. There's a lot of people who will argue that point, that in order for you to reach that level of greatness, you got to be selfish. And in addition to that, you have to be obsessed. And there is no such thing as work-life balance when you're in that season of your life. I want you to speak on that and just tell me your honest thoughts if you think that could be true.
Well, John, certainly, if there's one message I could convey to anybody today, don't do what I did. It's very, very important. Unfortunately, for most of my life, I've had an unhealthy relationship with money. For a lot of people, it's drugs or gambling. For me, it sounds crazy. Money became my God for many years. When you become an entrepreneur, you start realizing you can trade time for money and more time for more money and a lot of time for a lot of money and extreme amount of time for hopefully an extreme amount of money. Call me OCD, compulsive, whatever. I took that to the 9th degree, but I justified it in my mind as saying, I'm the husband. You know, we have a wife and we have several kids. She's taking care of the children and I'm bringing home the money to pay for that. And you couldn't have told me, John, for 10 years, I was doing anything but exactly what God wanted me to do and what my wife was doing. My wife and kids could have told you for 10 years, this is a disaster. And it was that extreme. I was happy. We were making money every year. We got a nicer car, bigger house, all this stuff. But the kids don't know that. They don't look at the house. They don't look at the car. And if you don't think that your kids don't know it when you're not there, you are dead wrong. That's the biggest fear that I can hopefully tell people. When I retired in 2019, I've got millions of dollars in the bank. I've got houses, you know, different parts of the country. I couldn't wait to spend time with my kids because certainly they want to spend time with me. No.
Wow.
What? I've been working this many years and putting you through school and giving you all this stuff. And they said, Dad, we don't even know you.
Wow.
And they said, we'll spend some time with you, but we're not going to open up to you and we're not going to count on you like we count on Mom. Like you weren't there our whole childhood. And wow, you're talking about something that ripped your heart out because it was totally unexpected. I thought when those kids were young, they would forget some stuff that happened to them. Not that it was ever abusive, it just wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, John, and like some people, this is what I was doing. I'd sit on my couch at home and I got home at 9 o'clock, acting like I was listening to the kids and I'm, you know, putting out fires or trying to work on the next business deal. I did that at restaurants. I did that at home. I did it on the weekends. I worked on the weekends. My store was open 7 days a week and I insisted that I wanted to be their son every single day. I didn't trust the fact that that business was going to survive with or without me. We had a lot of good employees, especially Lone Star. We had a huge team. I didn't realize that I didn't need to put that much effort into it, or I could have worked smarter with my time, which is one thing you really discuss with people about time management. I was terrible with time management. So I slowly rebuilt my relationship with my children after 2019, and they taught me everything I did wrong. And it was so obvious to me. I'm thinking, how could I have been this stupid and so shallow? So,
And that was just 6 years ago.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just telling you. And by the grace of God, I think we have a fantastic relationship now. My kids, I feel like they love me and I love them. And we talk about these things. And I discussed with them about me starting a new business. You know, I made sure it was okay with them before I did something else. You know, I don't need the money. Because I went through that heartache and it could have been avoided, I'm just saying, you know, the young entrepreneurs that you train and talk to every day because you're around them, there's someone going through what I went through. You're just at the first stage of it. But if you're even thinking as an entrepreneur or an executive, hey, I'm working a lot and I'm not spending as much time with my family. I'm missing school functions with my children. Maybe I should have a little more work. Okay, you're way off the cliff. If you're even thinking that,
Right.
You're way down the road of where I ended up. Please pay attention to that. Back up. And, I heard a quote the other day, a good dad has their kids in his lives. A great dad is in his kids' lives. So different.
Yeah.
So different. So, and you have no idea how fulfilling it can be to have a great relationship with a child if you've never had that great relationship before. I missed out on, in some case, 20 years worth of relationship with my daughter's 24. And my younger kids, I only missed out on 10 years of relationship, but still I missed a lot of time. And everybody can say, well, it worked out. You've got money. I could have had the same amount of money and not heartache and not put my kids and my wife through that if I'd have just been smarter or found someone like me that could have told me, hey man, you're really messing up. You know, your business is going to survive with or without you on Sunday. Yeah. If it's that good, just close on Sunday. Like you're going to be fine. But again, it was my unhealthy relationship with money that I would have done anything for money. And it cost me my first marriage, as we've already discussed. Yeah. You know, I just didn't want it to cost me this one. So thankfully, my wife, who you know well, is just awesome. You know, she raised those kids by herself, like literally 5 kids. We didn't have a nanny. Yeah. So you can imagine how busy she was. And when I come home from work, she wanted to talk to an adult. She was around 5 little kids all day. She wanted to talk to an adult. And here's me.
Right.
I'm working on the next deal for tomorrow, talking to an employee, talking to a vendor. And it just wasn't fair to her. You know, it wasn't fair to her, wasn't fair to the kids. And so if there's anything that we can get out of this today, please study what you're doing. And if you want to talk to me one-on-one, I can talk to you for an hour about what not to do. And I can show you the symptoms of it starting to crop up and you won't even realize it.
Right.
But please, I just think that's important, John. If there's anything that we can convey today, that's very important.
That was so powerful. I'll never forget this I forgot who said it, and I'm paraphrasing it. In life, you have 4 or 5 balls that you're constantly juggling, right? You got your finance, you have your fitness, you have your business, you have your marriage, and of course, you have your deep relationships. Out of all of those 5 balls that you're juggling, right, all of them are rubber except for your relationships. That ball is glass.
Absolutely.
So if you keep juggling those balls, even if you drop the money ball, it will bounce back up if you start to focus on it. The fitness, you keep dropping that ball of glass, eventually it's going to shatter. And when it does, it's almost, you can't rebuild it again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in your case, the fact that you've been able to have that story of redemption and reinventing the relationship with your kids is just phenomenal. The fact that you saw, thank you for your vulnerability, just being emotional and transparent about it.
Yeah, it's not anything I'm proud about. This is hard to discuss, but it needs to be discussed because, like I said, there's probably other people, you know, maybe not as severe case as I had. Like I said, my addiction to money, every year, and thankfully, in the business we had, every single year we made more money. Compound annual growth rate was 16.9% over 10 years for that business. So every year was a reason to celebrate. For me, every year was going, it's just not enough. We can do more next year. I never could. I was chasing happiness for years, and no matter what level of success we hit that year was always a record. You know, I always wanted the next nicest car. I wanted that 5,000 square foot house. It was so weird, and I chased happiness for so long. I didn't have any idea that happiness was in that house that I lived in.
Man, I'll never forget when we were in Florida and we went to dinner. And at this point, you and I just had that really great conversation at the bar before we actually sat and had dinner. You leaned into that message to me, talking about how money was your God.
Yes.
And of course, you had to reframe that relationship and you learned, thankfully, it wasn't too late. So thank you. I'll never forget that conversation. That conversation had an impact on me.
Well, I wasn't trying to preach to you, John.
No.
You're one of the most mentally strong humans that I know, and you've got self-control, and you make great decisions, but you've probably made some decisions you're embarrassed about. So it's, you know, you're not immune to it.
Oh my God, trust me. There's so many flaws and chinks in my armor, and I think a lot of people that I'm blessed to even have that type of influence around is because they see that I'm not afraid to be real about some of those things. And nobody has it all figured out. Now, one of my favorite parts about your story is how your servant leadership mentality not only helped you build a huge company, but also brought you to winning the Indy 500 or being associated with that, with having very little knowledge about the race car industry.
Absolutely.
And it all came from a genuine place of you trying to help someone else achieve their dream.
Absolutely.
So let's speak on that. Dive into that story.
I'll go quickly. TJ Humphreys was still with us at Lone Star Distribution in 2009. And we both knew James Sullivan. We call him Sully. He owned this product called Protein Bullet. It was a product that we distributed to a bunch of stores. And I would routinely reach out to these vendors and just say, is there anything that we can do for you better? Is there any possible thing that Lone Star can provide? You know, we're buying from these people. I'm the customer. Usually you would think they're asking me. But I remember I was talking to Sully one day. He says, man, what can we do to help you? And he says, man, it's funny you ask. I've had a dream my whole life of being part of the Indianapolis 500, and I want to compete in that. And this was in 2010. And I said, I'm a big thinker and dreamer. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. What are you talking about? Can you drive a car? And he said, no, not me driving. I want to put a car, hire a driver, put a car in the Indianapolis 500. And I thought to myself, that's just almost impossible. Where do you research that? Like, how do you get started? So he says, I got a friend of a friend of a friend who knows Jimmy Vassar, and he owns an IndyCar team, and we can probably approach him and rent a car from him for the Indy. I was like, this just sounds like I'm getting scammed. Like, where do I wire the money? And to somewhere overseas. And I said, Sully, this is crazy. Now, thankfully, Sully had known a motocross racing team, so he knew some of the basics of business and motorsports. He had a sponsor, Buku Energy, so he knew how to raise the money, he knew how to pay for the drive. So we had a little bit of basics of how the money flows.
Yeah.
And so he says, Chuck, he says, I can do it. He says, the good thing about IndyCar, there's a lot of teams that have 2 cars for the whole season. But for Indy 500, the prize is so big, they'll add another car or 2 just for the one race. So there's a lot of one-off people that race just the Indy 500 every year. They're not the full-time series racers. So he worked on that part of it. And I said, well, how can I help you? This is just totally crazy. He says, Chuck, you own a distribution company. You're good at turning product into cash in a very rapid manner. See, we sold tons of product for a very low margin, but we were turning a lot of product, turning it into cash. So he says, you've got 120 vendors that you work with, that you buy from. Some of those vendors would love the exposure to be on, to be a sponsor in a car in the Indy 500. So we put together a plan between us that worked for every single person in the food chain. And we also let that vendor pay for the sponsorship and product. No one ever wrote a check for this except me. I wrote the check to the race team, for the cost of the sponsorship, to rent the car, to pay for the team. That was in 2011. So we hired a driver named Thomas Schechter. His dad's a F1 driver, and he had driven the Indy 500 before. We knew he was great on ovals. That day we came in 8th in that race. So that expanded my mind to a degree I had never had it before. Not only did we get in to the Indy 500 on an 8-month notice, we decided we were going to start a team and do it, but we came in 8th place. We beat every Penske and every Andretti car in the race.
And this is with a rented car.
A rented car.
Had that been done?
No, never been done that I know of. So our budget for that race was $400,000. Which sounds like you think it's got to be tens of millions of dollars, but we rented the car plus paid for the team, and we shared technology with the team. And to be honest, that team wanted another car in the race because we had a different setup than 2 of the other drivers, so they have a better chance of competing well in the race because they're watching the telemetry on our car with a different setup than their driver has. So in case ours is working better, they can change their setup to match ours. So it's great for an Indy team owner to have 4 different setups and 4 different cars and then merge them all into one that works the best the day of the race, because you practice for the entire month before you race. So you got a lot of chances to see that. The great thing about that is, and because of 8th place finish, and James Sullivan, it was called SH Racing. Sullivan was the main owner of that company. We owned Team Lone Star. We had a separate legal entity for legal reasons to do this. So we raised the money. We wrote the check to the team, and the team took the money and actually did the operations. Chevrolet was actually going to enter the Indy Racing League in 2012. They reached out to James Sullivan, I think was 28 at the time, and they said, who are you? Number one, all these Indy owners, the Penskes and some of these Ganassis and Andretti's are aging, even though they're legends. We're trying to find some new blood for the sport. Wow. We want you to be a Chevrolet-sponsored full season race team. And he called me in a panic. Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened. Then we hit the jackpot. But at the same time, we've got to raise millions of dollars now, no more $400,000. So we entered the 2012 season with Tony Kanaan, who was actually a hero of mine. Did really well, came in 3rd that year, but we had a great year, went to every single race. I brought a lot of customers for Lone Star Distribution to every race. So I was growing my business, Lone Star Distribution, while having fun. This wasn't just for fun.
I was going to say.
This is how it integrates.
So you're still scaling that.
Yes.
You go 8th place, now you're 3rd place.
Yes. and having 16 races. Remember, I had a nationwide company by then. So in every market where there was a race, I had either a big customer or a potential big customer. So I had a cool event that I could invite either a potential customer, existing customer to rub elbows with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't another bodybuilding show. You know, my competitors were all these bodybuilding shows. I don't care about bodybuilding. I care about the supplements, but this is cool. This is an exciting thing. So in 2013, we got even deeper because we became the title sponsor for the car, major sponsors. It's a primary sponsor for the car. I had to go raise over $3 million to do that. So we wrote the biggest check to the race team. The racing budget was only about $5 million. I raised $3 million for that through my company. And Hydroxycut, who you'll see on there, and BSN, you see NO Explode. BSN was another company. They combined gave us over $3 million in product. No one ever wrote me a check. The great thing about 2013, since we own literally the whole car, the front wing for every race, those 16 races, I'd go to a different market, I'd put one of my customers' logo on the front wing of the car.
Man.
So, and I'd send them a PDF of the car with their logo on the front wing, 2 months before the race. And I'd say, hey, you want to participate in this with me? And they'd say, oh my gosh, what does it cost me? And I'd say, nothing. I just want you to buy more product for me. Can you buy more product for me? Because I know you're buying it for my competitor. I know how much volume you do. You just steer that hose towards me for the next 2 months, and I'll put you on this car for free. You can invite 10 people to the race. Tell them you sponsored the car. You'll meet Tony Kanaan. You're going to be in the suite with us, and we're gonna have such a great time. And I'm telling you, John, 16 races in a row. I knew these guys professionally before the race. On Sunday night going home, we were text buddies. I got to meet their wife, their kid. I put their kid in the car, take a picture of it, send it to them. It was like, it was like puppy dog approach,
Yeah.
And I hate to be that way, but that's how we gained these relationships. But we had no idea that we were going to win the 2013 Indianapolis 500 with Tony Kanaan. And that was probably I cried like a baby. There's pictures of me all over the internet crying and videos. But when I reached that, I say, there was hundreds of people that helped. But I'm just saying, for me personally, the sensation I had was, there's nothing I can't accomplish.
100%.
If I surround myself with good people, have a path to get there, make it reasonable, and most importantly, find a way where every single entity gets something out of this.
Yeah.
I didn't want one entity in here to feel like they're writing a check for everybody's fun. I wanted, as a matter of fact, Hydroxycut, which is owned by MuscleTech, was our 10th biggest brand going into 2013. They were number 2 by the end of the year.
Wow.
Because I paid double commission to all my sales reps for that brand for the year. So not only did they pay in product, they sold us 3 times as much product in that 12-month period than they ever had. So mathematically, it was worth it for them as well. So you can see, everybody won in that situation. And of course, 2 years later, I sold my company, and we got so much recognition from this, and all those customers that used to give me some of their business, they started to give me all their business. I'm talking all their business for the next 3 years. Those are long-lasting relationships, which helped us, get to $120 million mark, where we knew we were in a position to sell our company. But it all started with a phone call.
That's right.
Stolly, how can I help you, man? What can we do better to help you? And this is what happened. It's crazy. How we talk about two degrees away from greatness. You have no idea, just 1 or 2 people, whether it's somebody in your family, a customer, a vendor. John Hoffman owned Lone Star Distribution. He was just a guy I bought from, ended up being the biggest mentor in my life and gave me my financial break to kind of, to be where I am today. James Sullivan, I called him, hey, well, how can we help you? He talked us into doing the Indy 500, the craziest thing I've ever done. It was the biggest part of my life. I've got a championship ring. I don't have it with me today. My name's etched into it. And I've told that story a lot of times, but it's really to encourage others. You can do this stuff. Nothing's out of reach. And then even to follow up, it's even kind of a funny story. Chevrolet had this success with us, and James Sullivan, Sully, started getting a big name in the industry, and Ford called him. And Ford called him and said, hey, we're not in IndyCar, as you know, but we're starting the Red Bull Global Rallycross season next year. It's going to be just a North American series, just like the one in Europe, but we want you to be a Ford-sponsored team. And he called me and said, you're not going to believe this. Stuff's just coming to us. He says, we got to go raise some money, but Ford's going to put money in. Red Bull's going to help. But obviously, Global Rallycross is a smaller stage, so we're not having to raise millions of dollars. But so I went back to the well, went back to BSN, they know Explode, and said, do you guys want to be our primary sponsor for the whole season in the Global Rallycross series? And they said, we don't even know what that is, but yeah, we've had so much fun with you. Can we pay in product? I said, absolutely. So we did it. So in 2014, there's about 10 races, but the one right in the middle is the X Games in June in Austin. And Global Rallycross is those little, it was a Ford Fiesta, those little small cars that do jumps, and you see them doing the crazy turns. But and Nelson Piquet Jr. was our driver, and we actually won the bronze medal in the X Games 2014.
Unbelievable.
And that one thing alone would have been the coolest thing that ever happened to me, but I had actually won the Indy 500 exactly 1 year earlier. So just having all that success come to you at once, either you get the big head and you start thinking you're great, or it does completely opposite to you and humbles you, and you think, I cannot believe this has happened to me. I want to help other people experience something that they don't think they can experience. So thankfully, I think if you ask around, hopefully we'll tell you that it didn't go to my head. I actually used it as a positive way to encourage other people to do some things that they currently don't think that they can accomplish.
It's apparent. I think when we first started this podcast, I said that your story was the combination of resilience, reinvention, and of course, relationships. Like hearing it, you going from point A to point Z, your first business failing, knowing that your father-in-law was the one who funded it, and everybody against you to start a new business. Then you going back with the same name of that company, building that company to, of course, the $100,000 a month, and then getting eyes and from Lone Star Distribution, who's like, man, I want to know more about this guy, and building and nurturing that relationship to, of course, building the relationships, and then, of course, buying into that company and acting as a CFO, taking that company from 13 mil to 125 mil. And during all that time, obviously, your reinvention of like understanding what's most important in life and reestablishing what matters most with that relationship with your kids. And through all that, breaking more barriers, winning the Indy 500, going from 8th to 3rd to 1st, yep, and then going into another race, and then of course getting the bronze medal there. So I just can't wait to see what you do with this new company, but more importantly, the fact that you have that go-giver mentality. Like everything that you do, you're always trying to find a win-win situation for everybody involved. And the fact that it all started with just nurturing certain relationships. And of course, what you put out there, you get back full circle. Man, is there anything else that you feel like you want to share?
No, I just want to talk briefly about the coffee. I'm not here to just go promote my new company, but this is exactly the way my life works. Max Fairchild, I hired him in 2004 at Lone Star Distribution. He was a sales rep for me. He knew tons about supplements, knew a lot about the ingredients in these supplements. He actually knew more than anybody in our company. And then a few years later, he got hired away by some big brands. And I followed his career. We were friends for the last 20 years. And he actually formulated products for other companies, became very successful. Outlift is a product by Nutrex. He formulated that entire product as a hugely successful pre-workout product. So he called me less than a year ago and said, Chuck, I've got a product now I want you to see. And I knew he was going to show me the next best pre-workout and ask if I could invest in it. And I said, Max, yeah, I'll sit with you and talk to you. And he pulled out this coffee and he showed me his passion and showed me his business plan and showed me everything he had done to make this successful. And I'm not a coffee drinker at all. And I said, I'll try it. And the whole time I'm trying this coffee, number one, I'm surprised at how good it tastes. And I'm thinking to myself, you've been preaching this for 20 years. This is your chance to do what you say you want to do. And so I told Max, I said, 100% I'll help you. I've been retired for 6 years. I got houses in Florida, but there's only so much beer you can drink and get fat on the beach. and I said, Max, I hadn't put any kind of effort into anything, that's going to take this much of my time, but I'm going to check with my family to make sure that they're going to be okay with it, because it's going to be a lot of long hours, a lot of travel. And my family endorsed it completely. They love the product. Matter of fact, my family members own part of this as well. When I put money in, some of this is in my kids, for my kids as well. So I'm having a blast helping Max Fairchild reach his goals, reach his dreams. And I liken this to like a ghostwriter for a music artist that writes music and gives it to these famous performers, and they big hits. The ghostwriter gets paid something, but they don't ever get the notoriety. And then one day that ghostwriter turns into a musician, a performer himself.
Yes.
This is what Max has done. He was in behind the scenes helping these other companies make lots of money. He took a leap of faith, left the corporate world, and says, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to trust Chuck to help me monetize this and make a business out of it. And it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, and it's some things you get upset about, like any other business, and some things you just can't believe is happening to you, you know. But seeing him grow as a person, and he's never owned a business before. Now he's the CEO.
I see it.
I mean, we've raised millions and millions of dollars, so he's had to. He's had to kind of, learn this role, and I'm glad to help be one of his mentors. You're one of his mentors. A lot of the investors are real successful businessmen. So, I think we're going to be successful with this business, but I'm getting as much out of it just seeing Max grow as a person and reach his dreams like we helped, James Sullivan reach his dreams with, in Indy. And he's still in, Indy racing and racing today. So it's launched a whole new career for Sullivan. He's been extremely successful. And I can't say I have anything to do with it. He just know what he's doing. But I helped him launch, that part of his career.
I have no doubt it's going to be successful. And just the time I've got with Max, you got a special talent and a special person on your team, and he's blessed to have you. I want to hear a little bit more about it. Like what makes it different? Because clearly, you said it, only sugar-free canned coffee.
Yeah.
Tell me what's in it.
And first of all, I didn't know. When he first gave it to me, I took a sip of it. We had pilot batch, which was smaller cans. And I said, I don't drink coffee. And I drank it. I said, that actually tastes pretty good. I'd probably drink this. And it was the cafe mocha. I said, it tastes like a Yoo-hoo. Are you sure this is sugar-free?
Yeah.
No, I was like, it's too good to be true. And he was telling me all the other ingredients. Cognitique, it's got a nootropic. You notice it has a brain on the front of the can. I thought that was crazy. He said, no, it's a nootropic. That's fuel for your brain. Help with cognition and focus. He says it's got fiber for your stomach. It's got MCT oil. That's where it gets the fat from. It's medium chain triglycerides, a healthy fat. A prebiotic dietary fiber, so it doesn't upset your stomach. A lot of people that drink coffee, you're going number 2 within 15 minutes. By having fiber in this product, it's very easy on your stomach. Very rarely do you have somebody to say that this makes me, upset my stomach at all. And 200 milligrams of naturally occurring caffeine. There's no caffeine anhydrous in it, which is a different sensation than naturally occurring caffeine, theanine, theobromine. So all these ingredients together, when you drink an entire can, you feel, to me, it puts me in a good mood. Not just the energy. I don't have any jittery feelings, but I feel great. But he told me that there's not another sugar-free coffee on the market. I had to do my own due diligence. I went to Circle K, QT, Racetrack. I went and started doing this to every coffee in the cooler. And by golly, he was right. Why hasn't Monster Energy or Starbucks made a sugar-free, and I don't want to give them a hint, why haven't they made a sugar-free version of this? Maybe because they can't make one that tastes good. Max worked on this formula for more than 2 years with 11 flavor houses and have a really unique flavor that actually tastes good. A lot of times you get a sugar-free version of something and you're sacrificing the flavor because you're trying to be healthy. This is that one time when you're not having to sacrifice the flavor to actually do something good for your body. Most coffee drinks that are flavored are 300 calories.
That's right.
This is 45, and again, it's from medium chain triglycerides and 3 grams of fiber. The two things you'd want to derive, your calories from.
That's right.
So, we gave away 6,000 cans over about 6-month period to get reaction from people, and it was literally over 95% overwhelming. Oh my God, this is awesome. We raised money. It was very easy to raise. We talked to about 20 of my buddies, and everybody said, every single person I talked to is in this business today. Now, doesn't mean we're going to be successful. It's a lot of pressure on me to make sure, and Max, but we're having a lot of fun doing this, and I think we're doing something that's good for the public. I'm pre-diabetic. My doctors tell me to stay away from sugars. I can have this. It kind of quenches my sweet tooth, and it gives me the energy I need. It's kind of an all-in-one product for me, and I think a lot of people have seen that. Fitness Connection Gym, thank goodness they picked it up in their locations. Crunch Fitness, so far 78 clubs have picked it up. We've got Retro Fitness and others have already committed. Talking to EOS Fitness, anybody there in California or South Florida or Las Vegas, I think we're going to be able to get in with EOS Fitness. So we're starting in the fitness arena because that's our warm market. Yeah, and then ultimately, for us to be successful, you'll see this in regional grocery stores and obviously national distribution and convenience stores one day. Monster Energy gets 65% of the revenue from convenience store business. So if you're a drink brand owner, that's the golden arches there. If I can get into a convenience store and be successful in convenience store, not just getting on shelf, you got to have the pull of the turn. So we do have a unique product. That's why I told Max I'm in, because the uniqueness, I think, is has sold it so far. There's nothing like it on the market.
It's amazing. I'm not a coffee drinker either. And when you told me about it, I do take nootropics. So when you told me about it, I was already intrigued. And when I tasted it, I mean, I was blown away. So,
And I think you even told me your dad likes it. You called me one
That's
day,
right.
not putting words in your mouth. You said, "Hey Chuck, how can my dad get some of this?" And I was thinking, "Well, I'll give it to him then, because it's your dad." But you know, we still on Amazon and the website and TikTok shop. But John, I feel like I owe you, man. You're encouraging me to make good choices in my life. I'm happy to give your dad a couple of cases of coffee. So you know, I'm excited that your dad really appreciates the coffee.
I just love having a front row seat of this chapter 1 of this, and just us growing our relationship, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
John.
sir, man.
Had a
That
great-
was awesome.
This is the Rare Breed Syndicate.